What's up guys, my name is Ace, and yesterday we got a weapon balancing change to a few of the weapons in the game, the BAR, the ITRA Burst, the Gewehr 43, as well as a bunch of the pistols. Today we're going to be going over all of the details, the befores and afters, and I'm going to be sharing my opinions on these changes. So first up, let's cover the BAR. This one's really quick and easy to get through. Before this change, the BAR was in the faster category of rifles when it came to aim down sight and sprint out time. After this change, it simply moved it to the slower category. So it went from having a 210 millisecond aim down sight time, now to having a 260 millisecond aim down sight time, which is now equal to the FG42 and the Volkssturm Gewehr. Which, keep in mind, if you put quick draw on this, it will actually just take it back to the pre-patch value, so it'll essentially just revert that aim down sight nerf that it just got. And for its sprint out time, it went from 250 milliseconds up to 300 milliseconds, so a little bit slower than it was before. So realistically, you shouldn't notice too much of a change with the BAR, especially if you're pre-aiming corners and everything like that. It's just going to make it so it's a bit less effective at rushing and competing with SMGs, and when you get into those situations where you guys run into each other face to face, the BAR has an insanely fast time to kill up close. And I think overall this balancing change makes a lot of sense for the BAR. You can no longer be quite as aggressive as you used to be able to be with this gun. Next up, for three of the pistols, the P08, the M1911, as well as the 9mm SAP, the patch notes state that these all got slightly improved accuracy. Now they didn't mention which accuracy stat this actually affected, and I did some wall tests with the recoil just to compare pre-patch and post-patched. And as you can see, as I show these here, there isn't a significant difference on any of these between pre-patch and post-patch. This confused me for a little bit, but I went back and I read the patch notes a bit more carefully, and something else they said in the patch notes is that it should yield more consistent results when shooting accurately. So I went back and had a look at the idle sway values, and it seems like the idle sway values are what were actually reduced for these three pistols. So that first shot accuracy should be much more consistent now compared to where it was before this patch, but the actual recoil values themselves appear to be exactly the same as before. Next up we have the Gewehr 43, and this one actually got a buff, and this buff was simply a slight increase to the potential rate of fire. So the rate of fire cap has increased. It's really hard to get a perfect hand-tested value on this, so I'm not even going to try and share a value with you guys here, and I don't have the hard stats on this yet. But just know that the Gewehr 43's fire rate cap has increased, and it is noticeable for those that have good trigger fingers. I had a chance to play with this quite a bit yesterday on stream. I actually dropped a V2 rocket with it as well. It is definitely noticeable, and for anybody that has a fast trigger finger, try this out with the rapid fire attachment. You're going to absolutely love it. So finally, we have the gun that you guys are probably here for, the ITRA Burst. This got a few nerfs, and this is really controversial as well. I've seen all over Reddit, people on both sides of this, but let's get into the actual numbers here. So first up, it got a nerf to its rate of fire within the burst, as well as its burst delay. Before this nerf, we had a rate of fire within the burst itself at 968 rounds per minute, with a 112 millisecond burst delay. This meant that our time to kill within the 4-shot kill range, or the 1-burst kill range, was 186 milliseconds, and then in the 5-shot kill range, our time to kill dropped off to 360 milliseconds. I just wanted to point out this 360 millisecond value is a little bit different from the gun guide I did on the ITRA. This is because I found a slight error with my calculations on that. It's still very similar to the value that I had, but I just made a slight error in the calculation. This 360 millisecond value was the accurate value. Now let's have a look at post-patch. Keeping in mind this is hand-tested, it's not based on the hard stats, but this is what you'll actually experience at 60 FPS. So our post-patch rate of fire within the burst is 923 rounds per minute. What this means is it takes 1 frame longer to fire your burst of 4 rounds, and what this translates to is you have to stay on target as you're firing your burst for 1 frame longer than you did before. A very, very minor change, but it definitely could lead to some situations that would have been 1-burst kills that are no longer 1-burst kills. As for the burst delay, this was increased by 2 frames, and this is the more noticeable difference with the ITRA. Now it takes 2 frames longer to get that second burst off than it did before. And this makes the gun a bit more unforgiving than it used to be, so if you do miss that first burst, or if you require that second burst if you're in the 5-shot kill range, it's definitely less forgiving, and your time to kill is going up by a noticeable margin. Speaking of time to kill, the time to kill that we experience if we're 1-bursting somebody really hasn't changed all that much. It's pretty much the same as before. Like I said, it was a 1-frame change, and based on my hand-tested values, it's still going to be less than 200 milliseconds. The noticeable change to our time to kill comes with that second burst. This now jumps your time to kill all the way up to 400 milliseconds, which is quite slow. The next change that we got to the ITRA Burst was the change to the advanced rifling attachment and how it affects this weapon. Before this patch, advanced rifling worked like it did on all of the rifles in the game aside from the BAR, which means it doubled all of your range values, And this took our 4-shot kill, or our 1 burst kill potential, from 37.5 meters up to 75 meters. And 75 meters is well beyond any practical line of sight you'll find in this game. So essentially, putting advanced rifling on the ITRA before this patch meant that you always had that 1 burst kill potential at any range that you'd ever find in the game. With this patch though, they actually nerfed this attachment so it's more in line with the BAR's advanced rifling, and now it only increases your 4-shot kill range by roughly 30%, which takes your 1 burst kill potential out to 50 meters now. So definitely a very noticeable nerf to the advanced rifling attachment. Some people will still like to use advanced rifling because the vast majority of your gunfights will still fall within a 50 meter range, so it is still going to be helping with those really accurate 1 burst kills. But just keep in mind, there will be some lines of sight in this game, relatively rare lines of sight, but there will be some lines of sight now where you can't get a 1 burst kill, even with advanced rifling equipped. Now finally, they made a very slight adjustment to the center speed. They actually nerfed this a little bit, but when I did my side-by-side recoil test, as you can see here, there is almost no change whatsoever. There's a slight destabilization in your horizontal recoil, but that is a very slight destabilization. And generally, this is still an extremely accurate gun, and you shouldn't have any issues with the recoil. So while they did change quite a few numbers with the ITRA Burst, and it is noticeably less forgiving than it was before this patch, I would still classify the ITRA Burst as an upper tier rifle in this game. It's still excellent. I wouldn't worry too much if you were somebody that was saving up for the ITRA, you've been saving up armory credits or something, and now you heard they nerfed it. They didn't nerf this into oblivion by any means. I see a lot of people completely overreacting about this nerf. It's still an excellent gun, and even coming from somebody that didn't feel that the ITRA needed any sort of a significant change, I think this was a good change overall to the gun. They didn't destroy it by any means, they made it a little bit less forgiving than it already was, but it's still a great gun in my opinion, and I would still highly recommend spending your armory credits on it, because there's nothing else like it in this game, and it's got a lot of potential. So there we have it. That's going to wrap it up for all of the weapon changes we got yesterday. I'd love to know in the comment section below, what do you guys think about all these changes? Do you think they were good changes, bad changes, necessary or unnecessary? Let me know those thoughts down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.